A guttural, commanding voice sliced through the cabin like a whip. "Get your ghetto ass out of first class before I have you arrested for theft." Flight attendant Brielle stood over Dr. Marin and Gwyn, hands on her hips, face twisted with disgust. Security officers flanked Marin's seat. Their hands moved toward her arms as she sat perfectly still in 2A. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us," Officer Harlan said, gripping her elbow. Marin did not resist as they yanked her upright. Her navy blazer wrinkled. Her briefcase crashed to the floor, contents spilling. "This is how people like you always act," Brielle sneered, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Stealing seats, playing victim. Passengers filmed with shaking phones. Children stared wide-eyed, adults whispered in shock. What none of them knew was that this humiliated woman would destroy their airline in the space of a single, devastating confrontation. Have you ever been judged by your appearance before anyone bothered to learn your name? Earlier, Dr. Marin Nguyen had boarded Pacific Skies Airlines Flight 447 like any other passenger. Her first-class ticket showed seat 2A. Her briefcase bore a subtle monogram, Nguyen Ventures. She had settled into her seat, opened her laptop, and begun reviewing documents marked Confidential Merger Proposal. The header read, Pacific Skies Airlines Strategic Investment, $1.2 billion. Her phone buzzed constantly. 47 missed calls from the Pacific Skies Airlines CEO's office. She declined each one, focusing on her work. That was when Brielle noticed her. "Excuse me." Brielle's voice carried that particular tone flight attendants use for problem passengers. "Can I see your boarding pass?" Marin looked up from her laptop. "Of course." She handed over the pass without hesitation. Brielle examined it like a detective studying evidence. She turned it over twice, held it up to the light, compared it to her passenger manifest. "There seems to be an issue," Brielle announced loudly. Other passengers began to pay attention. The businessman in 1C lowered his newspaper. The woman in 2B paused her phone conversation. "What kind of issue?" Marin asked calmly. "This ticket. It doesn't look right." Brielle's eyes narrowed. "How did you get this seat?" "I purchased it through your website 3 weeks ago." "That's impossible. First-class tickets cost $2,000. You probably got this through some discount site." Brielle's voice grew louder with each word. "Those sites sell fake tickets all the time." Marin's fingers tightened slightly on her pen. It was the only sign of tension she showed. The passenger in 2B had started filming discreetly with her phone. Her Instagram livestream showed 3 viewers initially. Within minutes, it climbed to 47. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to call my supervisor," Brielle said, pulling out her radio. "Nadia to first class, please. We have a situation." Nadia arrived almost at once. She was older than Brielle, with silver hair pulled back severely and reading glasses hanging from a chain. Her uniform was pressed to perfection, and she carried herself like someone who had been handling situations for decades. "What's the problem?" Nadia asked, looking directly at Brielle instead of Marin. "This passenger has a questionable ticket for first class," Brielle explained. "I think it might be fraudulent." Nadia turned to examine Marin for the first time. Her eyes swept from Marin's natural hair to her leather pumps, lingering on details that had nothing to do with her ticket. "I see," Nadia said slowly. "Ma'am, we're going to need to verify your identity and payment method." "I'd be happy to provide identification," Marin replied, reaching for her purse. The Instagram live viewer count had jumped to 340. Comments started flowing. "This is disgusting. Sue them. Record everything. What airline is this?" "Let me see your ID and credit card," Nadia demanded, holding out her hand like she was confiscating contraband from a student. Marin provided both items. Nadia studied them with exaggerated skepticism. "Dr. Marin and Gwyn," Nadia read aloud, emphasizing the title with obvious disbelief. "And what kind of doctor are you?" "I have a PhD in economics from Harvard Business School," Brielle snorted. "Right, and I'm the Queen of England." The passenger in 1C finally spoke up. "Is there a problem here? Some of us have connecting flights." Nadia turned to address him. "Sir, we're just ensuring all passengers are properly ticketed. Some people try to sneak into first class, and we have to protect our paying customers." "I am a paying customer," Marin said quietly. "And I'd like to speak with your manager." "I am the manager for situations like this," Nadia replied sharply. "And frankly, your attitude is concerning. Passengers who argue usually have something to hide." The Instagram livestream now had 890 viewers. Someone had shared it to Twitter with the hashtag Pacific Skies Discrimination. Local news accounts were beginning to take notice. Nadia pulled out her radio again. Security to Gate 23. We need assistance with an uncooperative passenger. Marin's phone buzzed again. Another call from the Pacific Skies Airlines CEO's office. She declined it and noticed a text message from her assistant. Board meeting still scheduled. Merger vote still on. They're waiting for your final decision. She glanced at her briefcase where the merger documents lay visible. The Pacific Skies Airlines logo was clearly printed on the cover page along with financial projections showing their quarterly revenue of $847 million. But Brielle and Nadia were too focused on their assumptions to notice what was right in front of them. You know what I think? Brielle said, loud enough for surrounding passengers to hear. I think she works in the galley on another airline and somehow got hold of this ticket. That's why she won't look me in the eye. Marin did look her in the eye. Her gaze was steady, calm, and completely unafraid. Two TSA officers appeared at the aircraft door. Officer Harlan, a heavy-set man with tired eyes, and Officer Vargas, younger and visibly uncomfortable with the situation unfolding before her. What seems to be the issue? Officer Harlan asked. Brielle pointed at Marin. Suspicious passenger with a questionable ticket. She's been argumentative and refuses to cooperate. Officer Vargas looked confused. Ma'am, do you have your boarding pass and ID? I've already provided both, Marin said calmly. Multiple times. She probably stole that ID too, Brielle muttered, just loud enough to be heard. The Instagram live viewer count hit 1,200. Comments were flooding in faster than anyone could read them. Someone had identified the airline and tagged their official social media accounts. Officer Harlan sighed. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to gather your belongings and come with us while we sort this out. Marin looked at her briefcase, then at her phone showing another declined call from the CEO's office. She had a choice to make. She could reveal who she was right now and end this humiliation instantly. Or she could let it play out and document exactly how Pacific Skies Airlines treated passengers who looked like her. Officer Harlan, she said quietly, I want you to know that I'm not resisting, but I am documenting this interaction for legal purposes. She gathered her belongings slowly, deliberately. The merger document slipped slightly from her briefcase, revealing the Nguyen Ventures letterhead. But no one was paying attention to details anymore. They had already decided who she was. The aircraft aisle had become a theater. Passengers craned their necks from economy class trying to catch glimpses of the unfolding drama. Children pressed against windows to see better. Adults whispered theories to each other. Officer Harlan placed his hand gently on Marin's elbow. Ma'am, please come with us. She stood slowly, maintaining her composure. Her briefcase remained open on the seat, merger documents partially visible. The Pacific Skies Airlines logo peeked out from beneath other papers, but everyone was too focused on her face to notice. This is unnecessary, she said quietly, her voice carrying despite its softness. That's what they all say, Brielle muttered from behind the officers. As they moved toward the aircraft door, the passenger in 2B continued her Instagram livestream. The viewer count had exploded. Comments scrolled by in a blur. This is not 1960. Get her lawyer on the phone. What's the airline stock symbol? Someone call the news. Captain Gideon Crow appeared in the cockpit doorway. High was a tall man with graying temples and decades of flying experience. He had seen passenger disputes before, but never one that had completely halted boarding. What's the delay? He called out. We have a tight departure window. Nadia hurried toward him. Captain, we have a passenger situation. Someone with a questionable ticket trying to occupy first class. Crow looked past Nadia to see Marin walking calmly between two TSA officers, her head held high. Something about the scene bothered him, but he could not put his finger on what. How long will this take? He asked. Air traffic control is already asking about our delay. Just a few more minutes, Captain. We need to verify her story. The businessman in 1C stood up. Excuse me, but I have a connecting flight in Atlanta. Can we resolve this quickly? Sir, please remain seated, Officer Vargas said. We're handling the situation. Handling what situation? The man's voice carried irritation. I saw her boarding pass. It looked legitimate to me. Brielle whirled around. Sir, you don't understand. People like this try to scam their way into first class all the time. They print fake tickets, steal credit cards, all sorts of schemes. People like what? The businessman's question hung in the air. Nadia quickly intervened. What my colleague means is that we've seen an increase in ticket fraud recently. We have to verify everything. At the aircraft door, Officer Harlan radioed for additional support. We need a supervisor at Gate 23, possible ticket fraud case. Marin's phone buzzed again, another call from the Pacific Skies Airlines CEO's office. The caller ID showed Sterling Chen, CEO, Direct Line. She declined it and noticed her assistant had sent another text. They're asking if you want to postpone the board meeting. The merger vote is critical. She typed back quickly. No postponement. This situation is educational. Ground Supervisor Reed Lang arrived at the aircraft door. He was a thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and the harried look of someone who had been dealing with airport crises for years. His radio crackled constantly with updates from other gates. What do we have here? Reed asked, slightly out of breath. Officer Harlan explained the situation while Marin stood silently nearby. She noticed how each person who joined the discussion spoke about her as if she were not there. Has anyone actually called to verify the ticket? Reed asked. Nadia looked annoyed. We don't need to call. It's obviously fraudulent. Look at her. Look at her what? Reed asked carefully. The Instagram Live viewer count hit 4,200. Someone had started the hashtag Pacific Skies Discrimination. The airline's official Twitter account was being flooded with mentions and demands for response. Local news stations in New York and Atlanta began picking up the story. A reporter from Channel 7 News was already heading to LaGuardia Airport. Captain Crow's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing a brief delay due to a passenger boarding issue. We'll be underway shortly. Passengers groaned. Some checked their watches. Others pulled out phones to text about missed connections. In the first-class cabin, the woman who had been live-streaming spoke up. You know, I've been watching this whole thing, and that lady never raised her voice or acted suspicious. She just sat there reading her papers. Ma'am, please don't interfere, Nadia snapped. You don't have all the facts. What facts? That she's Asian and in first class? Because that seems to be the only suspicious thing here. The cabin fell silent. Someone had said what everyone was thinking. Brielle's face flushed red. This has nothing to do with race. This is about ticket fraud. Then why haven't you checked anyone else's ticket? The woman pressed. I'm in first class too. Want to see my boarding pass? The plane remained at the gate. Reed pulled out his radio. Operations, we're going to need a few more minutes at gate 23, passenger verification in progress. The response crackled back. Gate 23, you're showing red on the board. We need this bird in the air. Copy that, working on it. Marin watched the entire exchange with growing fascination. In her years of running Win Ventures, she had seen organizational dysfunction before, but rarely this spectacular. Her phone rang again. This time it was not the CEO's office, it was her attorney. Dr. Nguyen, I've been watching the live stream. Are you being detained without cause? She spoke quietly into the phone. No detention yet, just verification. I'm documenting everything from here. This could constitute a civil rights violation under Section 1981. I'm aware, she said softly. Let it play out. Officer Vargas had been growing increasingly uncomfortable with the situation. She approached Reed, but, sir, maybe we should just verify the ticket through the airline system. It takes 30 seconds. Reed nodded. Good idea. Nadia, can you pull up her reservation? Nadia hesitated. The system it's running slow today. Try it anyway. The Instagram live stream had reached 6,800 viewers. News outlets were starting to embed the stream in their online articles. Hashtag Pacific Skies Discrimination was trending in New York, Atlanta, and Chicago. Inside the terminal, passengers at other gates had heard about the incident and were pulling up the live stream on their phones. Airport workers paused their duties to watch. The story was spreading faster than anyone could contain it. Nadia reluctantly pulled out her tablet and accessed the airline's reservation system. Her fingers moved slowly across the screen as if she were hoping the system really would be slow. Well? Reed asked. Nadia stared at the screen. Her face went pale. What does it say? Officer Harlan asked. Nadia's voice came out as barely a whisper. The ticket it's legitimate. What was that? Reed leaned closer. The ticket is valid, Nadia said louder. First class seat 2A, paid in full 3 weeks ago. The livestream comments exploded. Told you so. Sue them all. This is disgusting. Pacific Skies stock is about to tank. But Reed noticed something else on Nadia's screen that made his stomach drop. The payment method showed a corporate account, Win Ventures Executive Travel. He had heard that name before, recently in airport management meetings about major corporate clients. Nadia, he said carefully, what's the passenger's full name in the system? Nadia's hands were shaking now. Dr. Marin and Gwen Ventures. Reed's face went white. Gwen Ventures was one of their largest corporate clients. They booked hundreds of thousands of dollars in business travel annually. But there was something else. Something he was trying to remember from the morning briefing about VIP passengers and special handling protocols. "Oh no," he whispered. "What?" Officer Harlan asked. Reed was frantically scrolling through his phone, looking for the morning's VIP passenger list. When he found it, his worst fears were confirmed. Dr. Marin and Gwen Ventures CEO, VIP protocol, board meeting today, merger discussion. Handle with extreme care. The merger discussion. The $1.2 billion deal he had heard rumors about. Reed looked at Marin, who was standing calmly nearby, watching their faces as realization dawned. She smiled slightly. It was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone who had just learned everything she needed to know. Reed's hands trembled as he stared at his phone screen. The VIP passenger alert was clear. He looked up at Marin, who stood calmly between the TSA officers, her expression unreadable. The woman they had just dragged off the plane was not just any passenger. She was the passenger, the one who could make or break Pacific Skies Airlines' future. "Officer Harlan," Reed said quietly, "I need to speak with you privately." They stepped aside, but Marin could see Reed showing Harlan his phone. Harlan's face went from confusion to alarm to what looked like panic. The Instagram live stream had reached 8,900 viewers. Comments flooded in. "What are they whispering about? Look at their faces. Something big is happening. The supervisor looks like he's about to throw up." Captain Crow approached the group, his patience clearly exhausted. "What's the status? I have 147 passengers asking about their connections." Reed could not meet his eyes. "Captain, we may have made an error." "What kind of error?" Before Reed could answer, Marin spoke for the first time in several minutes. Her voice was calm, professional, and carried the authority of someone accustomed to boardrooms. "Captain Crow, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. May I have a moment of your time?" She reached into her briefcase, the same briefcase that had been ignored throughout this entire ordeal. From it, she withdrew a single business card and handed it to the captain. Crow read it aloud. Dr. Marin and Gwen, Chief Executive Officer, Gwen Ventures. The business card was elegant, understated, heavy stock paper, embossed lettering, a company logo that spoke of serious money and serious business. "I don't understand," Crow said, looking from the card to Marin to his crew. Marin reached back into her briefcase and produced a second document. This one made Crow's face drain of all color. "Pacific Skies Airlines Strategic Investment Proposal," he read from the header. "And Gwen Ventures. Investment amount? $1.2 billion. Oh." The aircraft fell silent. Even the background hum of the ventilation system seemed to pause. Nadia, who had been standing frozen since discovering the valid ticket, found her voice. That's not possible." Marin looked at her directly. "I assure you it's quite real. Your CEO, Sterling Chen, has been trying to reach me all morning. We have a board meeting scheduled today, followed by the merger vote." She showed them her phone, scrolling through the 52 missed calls from the Pacific Skies Airlines CEO's direct line and the increasingly urgent text messages from her assistant. Reed felt like the ground was shifting beneath his feet. "Dr. Nguyen, we didn't know." "Of course you didn't," Marin said quietly. "You were too busy making assumptions to look at any actual evidence." The livestream viewer count hit 12,000. Someone had shared it to TikTok, X, and LinkedIn simultaneously. Pacific Skies discrimination was now trending nationally, but the real bombshell was yet to come. Marin pulled out her phone and made a call. Everyone watched as she spoke calmly into the device. "Sterling? Yes, it's Marin. I'm currently at LaGuardia on your aircraft having what I can only describe as an enlightening experience with your staff." Even from several feet away, they could hear CEO Sterling Chen's panicked voice coming through the phone. "Dr. Nguyen, thank God, we've been trying to reach you all morning. The board is assembled, waiting for your presentation. Is everything all right?" "That depends on your definition of all right, Sterling. I've just spent the last stretch being accused of ticket fraud, theft, and generally being treated like a criminal by your employees, all while carrying our merger proposal." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. Marin continued, her voice never rising above conversational level. "Your flight attendant called me ghetto. Sterling, your ground supervisor suggested I was running some sort of scam. Your security team dragged me off the aircraft based on nothing more than their assumptions about what someone like me could afford. Captain Crow looked like he might faint. Nadia had started backing away slowly, as if she could somehow escape the situation. Brielle had gone completely white and was gripping the back of a seat for support. "Sterling, are you there?" Marin asked. "Dr. Nguyen, please tell me this is some kind of misunderstanding." "Oh, it's a misunderstanding, all right. The question is whether it's the kind of misunderstanding that a $1.2 billion investment can overlook." The live stream exploded with comments. "She's the CEO. $1.2 billion. Pacific Skies just made the biggest mistake in corporate history. This is better than any movie." But Marin was not finished. She reached into her briefcase one more time and pulled out a thick folder labeled Due Diligence Report, Pacific Skies Airlines Corporate Culture Assessment. "Sterling, I want you to know that this incident is being live-streamed to over 12,000 viewers right now. It's trending on social media. Your stock price has already begun to fluctuate. But more importantly, it's given me invaluable insight into Pacific Skies Airlines' operational culture." She opened the folder, revealing pages of data, charts, and analysis. "You see, Sterling, when Nguyen Ventures considers a major investment, we don't just look at financial statements. We examine corporate culture, employee training protocols, and operational decision-making processes. We want to ensure our investments align with companies that share our values." Reed finally found his voice. "Dr. Nguyen, please, this was just a terrible mistake." Marin turned to him with the kind of look that had made her one of the most feared negotiators in corporate America. "Mr. Lang, this wasn't a mistake. A mistake is adding numbers wrong or missing a flight connection. This was a systematic failure of judgment, training, and basic human decency." She addressed the group that had gathered around her. The flight crew, ground staff, and the security officers who had spent the last stretch treating her like a criminal. "I want everyone here to understand something. I didn't reveal who I was immediately because I wanted to see how your airline treats passengers who don't have corporate influence or media attention. I wanted to understand what happens to regular people who face this kind of treatment, but don't have the power to fight back." The Instagram live viewer count had reached 18,000. News vans were pulling up to LaGuardia Airport. Pacific Skies Airlines stock price was dropping in real time as word spread through financial networks. Officer Harlan, who had been silent throughout the revelation, finally spoke up. "Dr. Nguyen, I need to apologize. This shouldn't have happened to anyone, regardless of who they are." "You're right, Officer Harlan. It shouldn't happen to anyone. But it does happen every day to people who look like me. To people who can't afford first-class tickets. To people who don't have the luxury of a corporate legal team." She looked directly into the camera that was still live streaming to thousands of viewers. "This isn't really about me. This is about systemic bias, unconscious prejudice, and the assumptions we make about people based on their appearance. Today I had the power to expose it. Most people don't." Her phone buzzed with another call from Sterling Chen. She answered it on speakerphone this time. "Dr. Nguyen, I'm in my car heading to the airport right now. Please, we need to discuss this situation immediately." "Sterling, the situation is quite clear. The question is what Pacific Skies Airlines intends to do about it." "Anything you want. Full investigation, policy changes, staff retraining, whatever it takes." Marin looked around at the faces surrounding her, some ashamed, some defiant, all uncertain about what would happen next. "Sterling, I'm going to board this aircraft now and take my properly assigned seat in first class. I'll be reviewing our merger proposal during the flight. We'll discuss the terms when I arrive in Atlanta." "Of course, Dr. Nguyen, whatever you need." She hung up the phone and looked at Captain Crow. "Captain, I believe we have a flight to catch." Crow nodded quickly. "Absolutely, Dr. Nguyen. Please let me personally escort you to your seat." As they walked back toward the aircraft, Marin paused and addressed Officer Harlan one more time. "Officer Harlan, I want you to know that your apology meant something. Real change starts with individuals who are willing to acknowledge when something is wrong." The livestream viewer count had reached 23,000. The story was now being covered by major news outlets. Pacific Skies Airlines customer service phone lines were jammed with calls. Their social media accounts were flooded with demands for accountability. But the most powerful moment came as Marin settled back into seat 2A. She opened her laptop, pulled up the merger proposal, and began typing notes in the margins. Brielle, who had been standing in the galley throughout the revelation, approached hesitantly. Dr. Nguyen, I don't know what to say. Marin looked up from her laptop. Brielle, I'm going to give you some advice. The next time you see someone who doesn't look like what you expect, remember this moment. Remember that you never know who you're really talking to. The aircraft door finally closed. Captain Crow's voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We're cleared for takeoff. As the plane taxied toward the runway, Marin continued working on her laptop. The merger proposal was still open, but now it included a new section. Corporate culture remediation requirements. The Instagram livestream finally ended as the aircraft took off, but not before reaching 31,000 viewers and generating hundreds of thousands of social media interactions. In the span of one searing confrontation, Dr. Marin Nguyen had been accused of theft, dragged off an aircraft, vindicated, revealed as a CEO, and transformed a routine business flight into a viral moment that would reshape Pacific Skies Airlines forever. But the real power play was just beginning. The flight to Atlanta stretched long enough to feel both interminable and profoundly productive for Marin. Seated comfortably in 2A once more, she immersed herself in the merger documents, her mind racing through the implications of the morning's events. The hum of the engines provided a steady backdrop as she meticulously annotated the proposal, cross-referencing it with data from her firm's internal databases. She pulled up spreadsheets detailing Pacific Skies Airlines' financial health, quarterly revenue at $847 million, but with looming debt payments of $340 million annually, and cash reserves dwindling to $67 million. The debt-to-equity ratio stood at a precarious 3.2 to 1, signaling vulnerability without fresh capital infusion. As the plane cruised at altitude, Marin opened a new document titled Pacific Skies Airlines Cultural Overhaul Addendum. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, outlining a comprehensive framework for change. Section 1 focused on immediate corrective measures, mandatory unconscious bias training for all 47,000 employees, to be completed within a short window facilitated by external experts from leading diversity firms. She specified interactive workshops, role-playing scenarios based on real incidents, including her own, and post-training assessments to measure retention and application. Section 2 addressed structural reforms. Marin envisioned a dedicated diversity and inclusion office headed by a chief officer reporting directly to the CEO, with a $15 million annual budget. This office would oversee the creation of an independent passenger rights board composed of civil rights advocates, former passengers with lived experiences of discrimination, and industry experts. The board would have veto power over certain operational policies and the authority to investigate complaints without internal interference. She did not stop there. Drawing from her economics background, Marin incorporated data-driven metrics, key performance indicators for cultural health such as employee diversity ratios, complaint resolution times, and customer satisfaction scores segmented by demographic groups. Failure to meet these KPIs would trigger automatic funding reallocations from executive bonuses to remediation efforts. Mid-flight turbulence jostled the cabin, but Marin remained unflappable. She sipped water provided by a now subdued flight crew and reflected on her journey to this moment. Born to immigrant parents in a modest San Francisco neighborhood, she had navigated systemic barriers throughout her life. From being overlooked in classrooms to facing skepticism in venture capital pitches, her PhD from Harvard had been a hard-won badge, but it was her founding of Nguyen Ventures that truly cemented her status. The firm, specializing in ethical investments in transportation and tech, had grown to manage $8 billion in assets, with a track record of turning around troubled companies through a blend of financial acumen and social responsibility. Her phone, now on airplane mode, had stored notifications from earlier, texts from board members at Nguyen Ventures expressing outrage and support, emails from journalists seeking comments, and alerts from her stock monitoring app showing Pacific Skies Airlines shares dipping 7% in real-time trading. She drafted a quick internal memo to her team. Proceed with due diligence escalation. Compile all similar incidents from the past several years across the airline industry. Prepare contingency plans for walking away if terms aren't met. Before descent, Marin's assistant forwarded a barrage of links. The story had gone global. CNN ran a breaking news segment titled CEO Humiliated on Flight Hours Before Billion-Dollar Deal, complete with clips from the live stream. Bloomberg analyzed the financial fallout, predicting a $200 million market cap erosion if the merger faltered. The Wall Street Journal profiled her as the quiet disruptor, highlighting how her low-key demeanor masked a strategic brilliance that had felled giants before. Social media was ablaze. Pacific Skies discrimination trended in 15 countries, with influencers dissecting the video frame by frame. Celebrities weighed in. A Hollywood actor tweeted, "This is why we need accountability in every industry," garnering millions of likes. Civil rights organizations called for boycotts, while supporters shared personal anecdotes of similar mistreatment, turning the incident into a broader movement. As the plane touched down at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Marin gathered her belongings with purpose. Stepping off the jetway, she was greeted by a flustered delegation led by Sterling Chen, the CEO, a sharp-dressed man in his late 50s whose usual confidence was visibly shattered. Flanking him were key executives: CFO Priya Vasquez, a no-nonsense analyst, General Counsel Arjun Patel, clutching a tablet, and VP of Operations Claire Lang, who avoided eye contact. "Dr. Nguyen," Chen began, his voice strained as he extended a hand. "I am profoundly sorry for what occurred. This does not reflect our core values at Pacific Skies Airlines." Marin shook his hand firmly but briefly, her gaze steady. "Apologies are a start, Mr. Chen, but actions will define the outcome. Let's discuss solutions." They adjourned to a private conference room overlooking the tarmac, where the hum of departing flights underscored the urgency. Marin activated her phone's recording app, placing it centrally on the table. "For transparency," she explained coolly. No one objected. She unpacked her briefcase, laying out the revised merger proposal alongside printouts of Pacific Skies financials, past discrimination lawsuits, and a freshly compiled dossier of industry-wide bias statistics. "Let's ground this in facts," Marin began, her tone professorial. "Your quarterly revenue is $847 million. But with $340 million in annual debt and $67 million in cash, you're months from insolvency without intervention. Guyan Ventures' $1.2 billion infusion is your lifeline, but the risk profile has shifted dramatically due to this morning's events." She flipped to a slide on her laptop, projecting it onto the wall. "In the last stretch of time, Pacific Skies has settled 15 discrimination claims with the DOT, 9 involving passengers of color, totaling $3.1 million in payouts. Litigation exposure per case averages $210,000, but with viral exposure like today's now viewed by over 400,000 people, damages could escalate to 8 figures." The room tensed. Vasquez, the CFO, interjected. "Dr. Nguyen, what terms would secure the original deal?" Marin's response was measured but firm. "The original terms are obsolete. This incident exposes cultural rot that inflates investment risk." She distributed copies of her addendum. "Revised proposal, $1.2 billion investment unchanged, but equity stake increases to 38% from 25%. Board seats, 5 for Nguyen Ventures. A $60 million cultural transformation fund over several years, funding annual external audits, a $3 million passenger advocacy initiative, and a complete training overhaul within a short window." Chen scanned the document, his brow furrowing. "These are aggressive, Dr. Nguyen. The increased stake dilutes existing shareholders significantly." Marin leaned forward. "Aggressive? Your staff profiled me based on appearance, escalating a non-issue into a PR catastrophe. These terms mitigate the risk to my firm's reputation and ensure genuine reform." To illustrate, she detailed the bias prevention program: quarterly workshops using VR simulations of discriminatory scenarios, anonymous reporting hotlines with AI-assisted triage, and partnerships with organizations like the ACLU for oversight. "The ROI is clear," she added, citing studies. "Companies with robust DEI programs see 25% higher retention and 19% revenue growth from diverse customer bases." The executives huddled, murmuring about stock impacts and alternatives. After a tense interval, Chen conceded. "We accept. Pending board approval, implementation starts immediately." Marin nodded. "My team arrives tomorrow for assessments. Enroll Brielle, Nadia, and Reed in the inaugural training. Personal accountability is key." Bye. Adios. Exiting the room, Marin's phone lit up with updates. Pacific Skies stock rebounded 9% on merger confirmation news. Media dubbed it the billion-dollar reckoning. She texted her assistant. "Transformative, not punitive, the work continues." In the period that followed, Pacific Skies Airlines' metamorphosis was underway. Terminations followed swiftly. Brielle was fired for policy violations, her parting marked by a severance tied to an NDA and mandatory counseling. Nadia faced demotion to terminal services, her role stripped of passenger interaction. Reed retained his position but underwent intensive retraining, emerging as an internal advocate for change. Dr. Lena Voss, a renowned organizational psychologist from Stanford, was appointed Chief Equity Officer with an $18 million budget. Her inaugural address to employees emphasized, "This isn't compliance, it's evolution. We're building an airline where dignity is the default." The mandated training program rolled out in phases: 20-hour modules blending lectures, group discussions, and experiential learning. Employees simulated bias scenarios from gate disputes to in-flight service, fostering empathy. Completion rates hit 98%, with follow-up surveys showing 85% improved awareness. The Passenger Equity Hub, established in 20 major airports, became a beacon of support. Staffed by trained advocates, it resolved 1,200 cases in its first stretch of operation, 82% discrimination-related, with a 4.95 satisfaction rating. One case involved a family of Middle Eastern descent wrongly flagged for security. The hub intervened, providing upgrades and apologies, averting escalation. Financially, the changes paid dividends. Customer ratings surged from 2.3 to 4.5 stars. Turnover plummeted 38%, saving $45 million in recruitment. Stock climbed 72% a day, adding $2.1 billion to market cap. Discrimination complaints vanished, replaced by praise for inclusivity. Innovation shone through the Equity Lens app, allowing real-time incident reporting with geolocation and evidence upload. Its AI analyzed trends, flagging high-risk employees for intervention. Within months, competitors like Horizon Air and Global Wings piloted similar tools. Personal stories of change emerged. Officer Harlan co-authored training materials and keynoted conferences, sharing, "That day redefined security for me. It's about equity, not just enforcement." Brielle, after her dismissal, pursued a DEI certification and joined a consulting firm, reflecting in interviews. "I confronted my blind spots. Now I teach others to do the same." The ripple effect spread industry-wide. 8 airlines adopted analogous programs. The DOT issued new equity mandates. Business schools case studied the Nguyen effect, with Marin lecturing at MIT on leveraging crisis for equity. Yet the true measure was in everyday lives. Letters flooded Marin's inbox. A Vietnamese entrepreneur thanked her for a seamless first-class experience. A Black family praised attentive service. Industry stats reflected progress. Complaints down 92%. Satisfaction up 27%. Training adoption at 78%. The merger finalized with Marin on the board, proposing the Equity Horizon Scholarship, funding 50 students annually in equity studies. Later still, Marin surveyed the Atlanta skyline from her office, a Time magazine cover on her desk. The 1.2B catalyst: how one flight sparked an industry revolution. The aviation equity awakening had reshaped travel, inspiring sectors like hospitality and retail to follow suit. Congress enacted the Travel Fairness Act, requiring bias training nationwide. Marin's philosophy, strategic poise over rage, proved potent. Her Travel Justice Foundation trained 150,000 workers globally. Her annual summit drew 5,000 leaders. Reflecting in a podcast, she said, "Humiliation fueled preparation, not vengeance. True power lies in uplifting systems for all." The legacy endures. Passengers fly freer. Employees act mindfully. Companies profit ethically. Marin's story reminds us, dignity is not optional. It is essential. Share your tales below. Your voice fuels the next wave. Subscribe for more narratives of resilience turning tides.